Earlier today, we learned of some incredibly sad news about one of the most beloved callers in the history of this program, known as Tammy Bullard, died in a horrific crash this morning on Highway 280 in Chilton County. She was with her 3-year-old granddaughter shortly before 8 a.m. on Highway US 80 between Sylacauga and Childersburg. State trooper officials say the driver of a commercial vehicle carrying some sort of explosive material was traveling eastbound when he possibly blew a tire and the truck overturned on its side, veering into ongoing traffic, hitting an SUV carrying Tammy and her granddaughter. She, there are no words right now to describe the impact and the importance that she had on this program and on so many people that were a part of it. You always hate to characterize, but easily one of the most important and beloved callers in the history of this program, which is, as everyone watching and listening knows, is primarily here for the callers. And she certainly could be loud, but that was what made her who she was. She was the most passionate caller that I've ever encountered, the most passionate fan that I've ever known. And it is just so difficult to talk about this and what we are going to try to do. And I appreciate all the people who have talked to us via social media. We are going to dedicate our final hour to let folks call up and discuss it because I don't think there's really any way to get around it. This happens occasionally on a program like this, but it doesn't make it any easier because most of the people that call in, we've had some interaction with at some point in time, but I got to know her fairly well. And as all of you know, the many calls to this program from her where she let her hair down and revealed herself, the challenges that she has overcome in her personal life. One day, and I won't go into it in much detail, she told us some of the most personal things that any person could share, and it was gut-wrenching to listen to, but it was also cathartic to so many people who benefited by her kindness. She had been involved in a fairly serious custody issue, which she described once on this program, but nothing was more important to her than her children and her grandchildren. And we, again, just appreciate so many people who have contacted us, and will continue to talk about Tammy throughout this day and throughout and for a very, very long time. We have a couple of things that we are going to get to here when we come back, but again, we'll spend a lot of time in the final hour talking about it. Let's maybe grab a call or two here just to try to share with the audience some thoughts about this. Jim, go right ahead.
Well, I just tell you right now, I just was stunned. I've had calls all morning and on Twitter, and I thought I was kept hoping and thinking it was not true. But I'm gonna tell you something, man. I love that woman. I loved her. I was gonna cry. She was a woman's shame, Paul. She was. I just loved her. I just can't stand the thought of her. I'm like Elvis Presley when he said, "Don't tell me about anybody else that I love dying. I'd rather be gone than them." And I just believe Tammy made it to heaven. She is definitely she had a heart of gold. Jane used to talk about it all the time. You've talked about her. Everybody talked about how great she was to to the guy Robert in Iowa when she was up there. And I'll tell you what, that clip you got, everybody asked me about that clip all the time, about where I said, let me talk. And she said, what talk? Everybody asked about that. Not for me, but I think you ought to keep that forever to honor Tammy. I just can't believe it. I just can't believe it.
Well, Jim, I don't know what to say, but there's nothing I can say that can better describe what you said. And you said something so interesting there. About 6 or 7 years ago, we did take that trip up to see Robert from Iowa, and she was. You may have heard me say this. We took off, and she started screaming, and I looked over to her and I said, "What's going on, Tammy?" And she said, "We're actually going up." And I said, "Yeah." She said, "I've never been on a plane before." She was terrified, but she was so incredible that day with Robert, who many of us know, Robert Fisher from Iowa, and they had such a great time, and it was one of the great, among the greatest memories that we'll ever have, or anything we'll ever do. But I really appreciate what you said there, Jim. Thank you so much.
Let me just end with this. My daddy used to say many times, this, he said, let me tell you something, son. The good die young. Well, today, I believe it. She's a young lady that really should, it's too early for her, but boy, we're going to miss her. I really mean it. And that show is going to miss her. No way to describe it.
No, there really isn't. And I mean, listen, we've had our conversations about where the show is and where it's going and where it's been, but the people that have made this and made all of us what we do every day here are people like you and Tammy and Shane. You mentioned him. That's one of the saddest days I think I've ever had, when we had to go on the air and talk about that. And this is the
second saddest for me. This is the second saddest, almost identical to Shane. I'm telling you, that's how much I thought of Tammy, man. I got to know her off air. People needed to know her off air, and she carried on like I do sometimes on the air, but she was good at it. But she was a great lady. I mean, a great lady. I loved her.
Well, I think you just said it, Jim, and yeah, she could drive anyone a little bit crazy with the screaming, but when you got to know her, and I did, I saw her many times at some of the functions that we would have, and I know you spent a lot of time talking to her. She was as real as any person I've ever met.
Exactly, and I'll tell you something else I was reminded of when I heard about it. I noticed that the last month or two when she would call, or the last couple of months, she was a lot nicer, a lot more down to earth. Didn't get crazy and stuff. Did you notice that? I mean, the last.
Yeah, no, I think, and I think through communicating, John talked to some people and so did I coming over here today. I mean, she was she was in a really big tough battle, as you know, Jim, and I think that weighed heavily on her, and I think it became more important than arguing with me or you about college football, and it's, I don't know, it's sometimes you shake your head and you wonder about the fairness of life, and I've talked to ministers about this, and I know you have too, but somehow today this just doesn't seem fair.
And a lot of other great lives that have been lost don't seem fair either, but we can't judge that. But I'm just telling you,
no,
I believe this. I'll just say this. I believe Tammy right now is finer than you and I can imagine. I just believe that. I believe she's where you have to go to believe how good it can be, and that's where I believe Tammy is right now.
Jim, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing that. We will take a short break. Come back. Much more to do here, and we'll spend a lot of time in our final hour talking about Tammy and what she has meant to all of us here on the program. We're coming right back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
By now, some of you may have heard the news we had earlier in the program. If you have not, it is incredibly sad to pass along that one of the iconic and most beloved callers in the history of this program, Tammy Bullard, passed away early this morning in Birmingham. She was with her granddaughter on Highway 280 between Sylacauga and Childersburg, south of Birmingham, and a 18-wheeler blew a tire, according to officials, and went over into the other lane, and tragically, Tammy and her granddaughter were killed in the accident. And I apologize to the audience for not being able to completely undo our normal programming, but being here, we certainly had many things scheduled, but we are now going to spend the remaining time reflecting back on her, and we begin with someone who was not only a close friend of Tammy, but we were together often in the past. So let's go right to Iman. Iman, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Paul. Thank you for taking my call. Paul, you came on you syndicated your program, and you came on in Montgomery. And before I knew it, I was standing in Birmingham, and y'all were having a Christmas party. And I was blown completely away by all the voices in that room. I was stunned that I was even invited. And then there was a second wave of your program, and that's when you put the TV camera in your studio. You had the boom mic on the table. You had headphones on sitting in the corner, and you had a chat room on that show. And that's when Tammy started calling your program. And the chat room was kind of in the early stages of doing something live. It was totally interesting. And several people asked me to get involved in it. So I went in there, and I met several people. And one of them was the Auburn lady. And she had just started calling the program, but she brought no attention to herself. And so you could side chat, and we got to talking and everything. And I met her in Montgomery. And ladies and gentlemen, if you've never seen the face of a happy woman, when you would look in Tammy's eyes and face and just look at her, that's what a happy woman looked like. And that's the best description I can give you of her, because that was her personality. And she was the real deal. And that second wave of things happened there, and Tammy and Charles came in kind of the same time, and so did Legend and K-Dub. And the show morphed into what it is today. But Tammy, we loved her, and to know Tammy was to love her. And she will be greatly missed, and a wonderful person, Paul. My condolences to everybody.
I mean, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate that. Squirrel is up next. Hey, Squirrel.
Hey, man. That was two great tributes tonight. I'm in June. And Tammy will be missed by everybody. She was, I wasn't her favorite caller, but she was definitely one of mine. And it's just sad to think she's not going to be calling in anymore. And I just want to give my condolences to her family and to everyone that loved her, including myself. Aloha, and thank you for taking my call.
Thanks, Squirrel. Greg is up next. Greg. Greg, go right ahead. Thanks for the call. Mike is up next. Mike, good evening. Welcome to the program.
Hey, Paul. I just like everyone that considers themselves part of the Finebaum family, I'm just in shock to hear about Tammy and her granddaughter, and just want to offer my condolences to the family. And when I first started watching your show, when you came on the air on the SEC network, and I'd hear Tammy call in, and Darryl, and Charles from Reeltown, and Jerome, and I kind of thought, well, who are these crazy people? I mean, they're nuts. And I said, surely there's better representatives of their football base than, their football fans than what they're saying. And I kind of had this elitist attitude. And then one day a guy called in, and he was talking about that if you didn't have a degree from the school, or if you didn't contribute regularly to the school, that you really had no right to be commenting about it. And you dressed him down, Paul. You dressed him down hard and you made me examine myself. And as I've grown and watched the show, I realized that the greatest thing that I think you do is give a voice to people like Tammy and other callers who really do exemplify what the love of football is. You may fight with Tammy on the air yourself, but if someone from what I consider the outside calls in and was to say something bad about her, you would fight to the death to defend her. And anyway, she's going to be missed. She was the most compelling caller to me, where I just couldn't walk out of the room that you've ever had. And like I said, I don't know if I've expressed it the right way, but I'm not an Auburn fan, but I'm a true Tammy fan. And anyway, rest in peace, Tammy, and we love you. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you for saying that. And listen, I don't think it was by design that we came up with a plan one day to do what we have done. But one reason I felt the way I did in that conversation was getting to know people, Tammy included, and I think when you got to know her, and a friend of mine just sent me a picture of the day that we went up to Iowa with Tammy to see Robert Fisher, and I think I learned more about her that day. As I alluded, it was the first time she'd ever been on a plane, but the warmth that she had and that made him feel so good and comfortable, and it overwhelmed everyone on that trip. And yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say that we didn't have some crazy screaming matches, but that was fine. That's who she was. She did it with a smile, though, as Jim and Squirrel and I-Man have said, and I don't want to diminish any caller to this program, because everyone has a voice here and everyone is important. But there have been few that have touched as many people as she has, and I know the next caller would agree with me on that times 10. K-Dub is next. Hey, K-Dub.
Hey, appreciate you taking my call, man. Definitely a sad day on this show. Sad day for Auburn family. Sad day for Alabama family. Sad day for the Finebaum family. And you got to excuse me if I, start rambling and talking and not being really coherent and making sense, because I'm just going to talk from the heart, And look, people just got to realize something, because Tammy, like I-Man said, probably started around the same time I did. When I first started calling this show, I would listen to Tammy. It would be so entertaining to me and so funny to me, and I would love it. And then time went on, and then it became the norm, because she was always on my team, and she was always talking about my team and kind of, upsetting me about that. So we had our back and forth plenty of times. Plenty. I mean, you can go back and pull these tapes up from these old shows. Plenty of times we had our battles. But people need to realize one thing, that Tammy was crazy about Auburn. She wasn't really like that in real life. She was a sweet person. When I met Tammy in real life, I met Tammy several times. I can't count on how many times I met Tammy, but I remember the first time I did meet her, we went to that Huntsville luncheon, and when I met her, and I was just blown away on how so much different she was on the air than in real life. And, people just got to realize, that's the same with me. I might come on and rant and talk real big about Alabama football. It's just entertainment, ladies and gentlemen. So some of these people not really like that in real life. So I appreciate you having this moment, and it's just a real tough pill to swallow. It's one of those things, because Legend sent me a text message to tell me about it, and it's one of those things where it just alters your whole thinking for the rest of, since you got that news. It's been on my mind. I've been thinking about her, and she's definitely going to be missed on this show. And I'm rambling and stuff like that, but I appreciate you letting me on, and people just got to realize this is a family, y'all, especially those people that's been back doing this for a long time. I started out with it, it was kind of a wave. It was kind of the people that was before us, And then we kind of came along, me, Tammy, I-Man, Legend, Charles from Real-Town, all these different, Miss Pat. You remember Miss Pat? I remember me and Miss Pat up there in Huntsville that same day. So it is a close-knit family. And Tammy, you're definitely going to be missed from the Finebaum Nation and the Sons of Saban. We love you, and I thank you for having me on, Beasley.
Thank you so very much. And you know what's interesting, I've just been looking down at so many publications and mediums talking about her, and I think because she really did. She was the embodiment of what K-Dub just said there. She was all of us in one, maybe the best and worst. But I know one thing, and just she cared so much about those grandchildren of hers and her children, and just the idea that her grandchild was lost in this is even you can't make anything more heartbreaking than it is. But it just seems it makes it more difficult to even think about. Thanks for the call there, K-Dub. More phone calls here at 855-242-7285. We're coming right back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Put a little cherry on the top.
Welcome back to the program here on this incredibly sad Friday night. We are in Athens, where we had hoped to celebrate the 12th weekend of the college football season, but unfortunately that will have to wait. Greg is up next. Greg, go right ahead.
Hey, Paul, thank you for taking my call. I didn't have the pleasure of meeting Tammy, and I only knew her through the calls, and as I was sitting here trying to explain to Mona what was going on, I got emotional about it, which is kind of odd, never having met the person. But it's a testament to the people that interact with you on a daily basis, and meeting some of the people that call in regularly. And I remember last year when she called in, and she was very subdued, and she had explained that she hadn't been calling for a while because she was trying to get custody of her granddaughter. And I think you probably remember that day.
Oh yeah.
And she and this is the same one that passed with her today. And I had an uncle that was buried on Tuesday, and he was only 68. And our minister has this thing he says a lot, and it's a line from an old gospel song, and it says, "This world is not my home, I'm just passing through." And it reminds me of the notion that never miss a moment to tell those that you love them, because you never know when that moment comes, and we're not guaranteed a due date, when we're no longer here. And I want to send my condolences out to the family, and I just hope that this will serve as notice to people that there are a lot of things more important in life than just football and sports, and that if you can keep things in perspective, then the moments that you share with your loved ones mean so much more to you than when you don't have the opportunity to say I love you to someone because they're no longer here. So I love all the callers and love you all, and hope that you have a good day, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think it's Kenny Chesney who has a song about all the things that you wish you had done, and you made her think of that song, Greg, a minute ago. He said he wished he had told his brother that he loved him before he went off to war, and now he can't. And it's such a great and meaningful line that Greg said. Thank you so very, very much. Daryl is up next. Daryl, go right ahead.
Well, you get the news, and you don't want to believe it, so you go and research, and you find out it's true, and you still don't want to believe it. I mean, just what a sad, sad, sad day. College football, Auburn University lost probably one of the most passionate fans I think a person could ever be. I feel confident that if Tammy was here right now, she would tell you that three things that she enjoyed most about her life was her children, her grandchildren, and this show. I think this show was a very positive thing for Tammy, and she loved it. She loved you, Paul. I think if anybody wanted to know what type of person Tammy was, all you got to do is go out there and watch the video of when you and her went to see Robert Waterloo. That right there, that video speaks volumes to what kind of heart that woman had. I mean, just amazing, amazing woman. She had an open book with her life. She could share it with anyone, and she's going to be sorely missed. Sorely missed. But, I mean, it's just a tragic situation. My prayers go out to her and her family. This show is going to miss her. The listeners to this show is going to miss her. She was one of a kind. I mean, absolutely one of a kind. And, I mean, my heart's broken right now for her and her family. She was the greatest of the greatest. She will be sorely missed. War Damn Eagle. See you, Paul.
Thank you, Daryl. Thank you so much. Allison is up next. Allison?
Hi, Paul. Daryl's right. She was absolutely one of a kind, and I didn't get a chance to meet her, and I'm sorry about that. But, for a while I've thought about calling you and just to say how hard it is to call every day, or as frequently as some of these people do. And, the bell rings and you're on, and these people bring it, and Tammy brought it more than anybody, and she's known for that, and she's going to be so deeply missed for that. And I'd say the times that she hasn't called is because she knew that she couldn't maybe at that point bring that kind of intense passion and love for her team. And I personally am going to miss hearing her so much and hearing you talk. With her.
Allison, when Auburn went to the national championship game when was it? I think it was the second national championship game they played, and they played in 2010, and they played in 2013.
2013, yeah.
I believe that she, one of the two, I can't remember which one. She drove out there to the game. It may have been the Fiesta Bowl, the game in Glendale, Arizona. I mean, she drove out there without a ticket, and I think somehow through the show and through friends of the show, she was able to find one. I can't remember specifically, but that's how passionate she was. And I mean, I cannot do justice to what Jim and Squirrel and I-Man and Daryl and Gray. I mean, everyone just said the right thing today, because even those who didn't know her knew her, and you understand that as well as anyone, Allison.
Oh, I do. She was, I can only hope that I can bring, 2% to the show when I call in, as she did every single time. And it just saddens me, and my heart goes out to her family and to you and to the Finebaum family. It's a devastating day, and it makes me sad.
Thank you very much, Allison.
Thank you.